Hey, this is Carrie with Stampiphany. I'm going to show you how to make this magic window card with the Your Sublime stamp set. You're going to need some Whisper White cardstock. All the colors and the sizes will be in the description box below. I'm going to take the Sublime Submarine and I'm going to stamp it on my Whisper White cardstock with Staz On because I'm going to be coloring this in with my markers later. So I want to make sure that this black outline doesn't bleed on me when I do that. So I'm just going to take that. Now what I did with mine is I stamped it about 3/4 of an inch to an inch up from the bottom of the cardstock, and that was because I was trying to make sure that that submarine would show through the frame of my card, and I'll show you how to make that in a little bit. But once that's stamped, you can just put that off to the side, and this is the card base. I'm going to show you how to make that. What you need is a piece of Island Indigo, which is about 4 inches by 7.5 inches, and I've just scored it 2 inches in on both sides, and then 1/4 of an inch up from the bottom, and I just use my Simply Score to do that. We're going to cut a circle out of the middle. What I did was I used the Circles Framelit die, and I just used 2 of them. And the first thing I cut out was the smoky slate ring that we're going to use later, that you might have saw on the front of the card. Kind of gives it a good accent. You just run them through the same time, and they cut that little ring out. But we need the smaller of the 2 circles, and we're going to use that to cut a circle out of the front of this card, and that's where our submarine's going to peek through. So now that we have that cut with our big shot, the middle of the circle we don't need. We can throw that aside and use that for a different card. But the front looks a little plain. First thing that we're going to do is we're going to cut the 2 extra tabs that we don't need off the sides there, which actually ends up being in the back when you assemble it. We're just going to trim that off on both sides because we don't need those. And you can use your paper cutter if you want, not necessary. As you can see, I'm just using my snips, whatever you're comfortable with. And then I like to miter my ends of my stuff just to make it neater, and it kind of tucks it away a little better when you go to glue it together. And I said the front looks a little plain, so we're going to give this a little bit of life here. I'm going to use my Woodgrain embossing folder. I know it's a Woodgrain, but I thought if you turned it sideways, kind of made it look like waves or water. So that's what we're going to do, is we're going to ink up the side, we're going to call it the raised side of the embossing folder, not the debossed side, but the raised side. So I'm just going to use my ink pad and just go directly onto my folder like that. Now I learned after I did this I didn't put enough ink on there, but you get the idea. You ink it up on the raised side, then you press your cardstock down and just kind of rub that, and then the ink transfers to the front. And when I realized when I turned it over I didn't have enough ink, so I went back through and inked it up again, gave it more ink, and then it had the effect that I wanted to. So this is what it looks like when it turns out correctly. Don't worry about the ink on the back flaps there because it's just going to be covered anyway. So fold down your little tab there, and use your bone folder to get a good crease. We're going to use Tombow glue. You can use fast glue as you want, but you got to make sure that none of that glue is poking out because you don't want it sticking to the part that you're supposed to be able to pull out of the card. So we're going to take a little Tombow, put just a little bit on that tab, and what I do here with the Whisper White is I measure it to make sure I get it going the right direction before I glue it down. That's always a good thing to do. So you're just going to glue it down kind of in the center at the bottom. Making sure that the glue doesn't come out of the top of that tab. See, I'm checking there, because if I do that it might glue it to the base and then I can't use it. It won't work correctly. So put a glue on each one of the back flaps on the bottom and then on one of the sides. And just a little bit of glue, a nice little thin line of the Tombow glue is all you need. Fold that left one first and then fold your right one over and kind of smooth that out. If your glue kind of comes out a little bit, just kind of wipe that up. I kind of use my bone folder to kind of get that up off of there. But if it dries and it's still sticky, use your adhesive eraser. That works really, really well on that dried Tombow glue to pick that up. I love my adhesive eraser. It just works great. So once that's done, you're just going to set that off to the side. And now that that's done, you can see that I've glued the little strip of that circle around, and see that middle white in there? That's what's going to help with the magic there. So we need to color our submarine in now that the Staz On is dry. And I'm just using my markers to do this. You can make it look watercolored if you want. Use your aqua painters or your blender. I'm just going straight up with the marker here. If you don't like your marker strip showing, I'm going in circular motions. Give that a try and see if that works better for you. It seems to work really well for me. So you can see that I'm just gently going around and doing kind of swirly motions as I color. Here's the submarine all colored and ready to go. Now it's time to stamp our window sheet, and we'll need our stamp positioner for that. So you're going to stack those together. It works for me to do it upside down. I don't know why, it just does. But I just have my plastic sheet here that comes with your Stamp-A-Majig, and I line that up on the Whisper White. Make sure they're perfectly lined up the best you can, because that's what's going to give the illusion of the magic there, of it being colored when you pull it out of the card. Once you have that set, stick your little handle there, line it up with that plastic sheet, and then pull that plastic sheet away, ink up your stamp, and then what you want to do is make your wood block go down into that right angle right there and stamp right onto that window sheet. Now window sheets are kind of slick, so use a steady hand. Take your time doing it, because if you're in a rush you might accidentally smear, and then you have to take some alcohol to it and wipe it back off and try over again. But anyway, once it's lined up, you'll set that off to the side. I usually give it about 5-10 minutes just to make sure it's good and dry. Here it is all dry and ready to go, my two separate pieces here. Now I have my Melon Mambo. I've already gotten it cut down and I've corner rounded it, and sometimes those small sheets are hard to fold, so what I like to do is take my bone folder and just kind of break down the fibers a bit, and it makes it easier to fold those small pieces of paper in half. And I'm just going to fold that in half, take my bone folder to it, and then I'm going to get my Fast Fuse out, which is one of my favorite adhesives ever, and I'm going to run some Fast Fuse down the sides there, as you can see on both sides, the front and the back. And I'm going to start with my Whisper White stamped piece. I'm just going to put that down up against the fold line, and center it the best I can. And then once that's down, you're going to take your window sheet, put it over the top, and line it up to where it's perfect, and then fold that Melon Mambo down. Melon Mambo, yeah. And I'm just going to stick a little Fast Fuse right there. Oops, forgot to cut it there. Pull that off. And then that will keep them nice and snug together when you pull it out of the card. Now all you have to do is just put that on the inside. As you can see, I'm trying to fit that in there. Sometimes it helps if you kind of hold them separate a little bit, and then slide that in. And you can see it disappear. All that color's gone now, but it's magic. So you can see me gluing that ring on. I just used some Tombow glue and just put a thin line all the way around in a circle. And then just glued that to the front. Super easy to do. This card actually didn't really take very long to put together, but it was so fun. I just love the effect that this card gives when you put it together. So you'll slide that down in, and that middle white piece is what gives you the magic. It covers up that colored piece, and it gives the illusion of this magic. Here's one that I made. I just added some little Melon Mambo hearts to it and wrote "pull" at the top. I really hope you enjoy this card. Let me know what you think.